Thank you, everybody, for joining us at this week's SDM interview show. Before I get to this week's episode, I wanted to remind you all that if anybody wants to join us or knows somebody who'd make a great guest as we interview entrepreneurs around the internet, please email us at hello@stunningdigitalmarketing.com. We'd be glad to get back to you and see if you're a good fit and arrange an interview. Now on to this week's episode. In this week's episode, I interview my good friend Jake Forsyth. Jake is a young man who should be a great example to all the youth of today. He gives his time selfishly to his community and cares about what he does. So sit back and relax and enjoy this interview with Jake. Good day, everybody. I'm here with my friend, Mr. Jake Forsyth, who is a bit of a community-involved person. And then we thought I'd chat with you all a little bit about why communities matter and what you can bring to the table to help your community. Hi, Jake. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Not too bad. So you and I have known each other, I guess, for a long time now. I've lost track, which is scary. We both lived in the same basic neighborhood for a long time. We both have collaborated on several events together and through different projects over the years. Could you tell our listeners a bit about your background and what you do?
Yeah, so I volunteer with Scouts Canada. I am currently the council commissioner, as well as volunteering in the community with a couple of different organizations. The one organization that I volunteer with for a really long time, since I was in grade 8, is the Centennial Community Recreation Association, as well as some local events like Port Union Winterfest, where I'm the chair of, and Port Union Waterfront Festival, where I help with logistics with that.
Yeah, and as you know, those events, and having been to both of them, having lived in that or on the fringe of that community, they take a lot to set up. The Waterfront Festival is a really good event. Port Union Winterfest is usually towards the end of January, correct?
Yes, it's always the last Saturday of January from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Yeah, and that event draws really well. So let me ask a question. How did you said you started volunteering with the community organization back in grade 8. How did you first get involved with that?
They produce a monthly newsletter, and I saw in the newsletter that they're looking for committee members. And I went out to one of their meetings and really liked what they were doing. Asked how I can get involved, and I've been involved now for almost 11 years.
Yeah, and that's pretty good. I mean, a lot of people get involved in groups and they last a year or two, and they kind of move on and find something else to do. Sometimes they move, and that's part of it, but sometimes, as you know, in community groups, the politics can get interesting at times, can't it? Politics gets interesting, right?
Yeah, for sure. Luckily, with my experience, everybody that's on the committee is there for the same reason, so politics aren't too much of an issue. But as everybody knows, that everybody has their own opinions, and politics could become an issue. But so far, I've been lucky and haven't had to deal with too much politics within organizations.
Yeah. Brings me to my next question. You know, I've seen this, having been, grown up in the Scarborough community and lived there for many, many years. And we saw a lot of this coming out of Danzig shooting. Isn't one of the big problems in community organizations, and I truly think organizations are well intended, but don't they kind of operate in silos and independent of each other? And maybe if there was some more collaboration at the higher levels, maybe things would be better in the communities. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so some community organizations and events kind of have in the past operated in silos, where they do their thing, they're good at doing their thing, and they don't want to branch out and include other people. Luckily, in our community, the last couple of years, we've been broadening our community organizations to work with each other and to support each other. So you'll see the different community associations at each other's events, supporting events, as well as helping publicize and promote their events.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I mean, I think part of the problem is, and one of the reasons in many communities, organizations work in silos, it has to do with funding. So if organization A is doing the same as organization B, if you're after government funding or grants, sometimes it's, frankly, harder when they realize they would serve the community better if they did more partnerships and things like that, and then just kind of, helped each other out, and then everybody would be better served, if you know what I mean, from that standpoint.
Yeah, exactly. And like the more that the community associations are wanting to work with each other and support each other events, it also helps out each other, because then Association B is getting noticed in the community for helping Association A. And then when Association B does their event, Association A goes to that event or helps promote it. So there's kind of that cross promotion and like support.
Yeah,
as well as when there's things going on in the community, like some community associations border on each other. So if something's happening, we often look to the other association for support. So if we have to go to city council, we have like-minded reports and requests to city council, and we state that this is how residences from Association A, B, C, and D feel.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It makes it a lot easier. One of the things you and I talk a lot about offline, knowing each other as well as we do, is your involvement with Scouts Canada. And how did you first get involved with Scouts Canada?
I started with Scouts. My parents put me into the program at 5 as a beaver, and I worked my way up through beavers and cubs, received my 6 stars and 7 awards in cubs, and then went up to Scouts and got my Chief Scout award, and then went up to Ventures and got my Queen's Venture award, and became the area youth commissioner. And then from there, I joined Rovers, and then joined on the council team, doing the events, public events, marketing, communications, and training, and then stayed with there for a couple of years. And then just recently, about just over a year ago, I was appointed as the council commissioner.
Yeah, which is a lot of work. And one of the things you just touched on, it's interesting. You mentioned 6 stars. And I think you and I had this conversation about a month ago, but correct me if I'm wrong. In my day, and I'm a little older than you, there was only 5 stars. And now I think you said they were talking about doing with the STAR program altogether, apparently.
Yeah, so a couple years ago, Scouts Canada redid the programming, and it's now like outdoor adventure skills, and it's a progression, so you could progress from beavers and still be working on the same set of skills to cubs. So you start at level 1 and you can work your way up through the levels. Doesn't matter where you come into the program, which is pretty cool, because if you come into the program at 13, you'll be in Scouts, but you can start at level 1 and work your way through. So that way, it's a pretty cool program in the sense that if you miss two years or whatever, you could start where your level's at, not where we think you should be at.
Yeah, which isn't a bad idea. One of the things I think a lot of people get into Scouts for, and I'd be the first to say that, is it sort of intensifies or helps your love for the outdoors. I mean, one of the things I always liked was the camping, the outdoor hiking trips, the canoeing trips. If it weren't for scouting and Cubs and Scouts, I don't know if I ever would have become the canoeer that, and I'm a pretty good canoeer, that I can do. I don't know. I think more kids need to get into that to get that, because they're not getting that in the schools anymore, and they're certainly not getting it at home. And I think it's becoming more and more an issue as we have, best way to describe it, as an international flavor to our country, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot of good programs. Like personally, I got to go and do things that I wouldn't have been able to do if I wasn't in scouting.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got to go to France with Scouts, Pennsylvania with Scouts, Calgary, Alberta,
Yep.
Nova Scotia, Newfoundland with Scouts. And if I wasn't in Scouts, I wouldn't have had those opportunities to go.
Yeah. I know, it's funny. I think back to my days in scouting, and I was in one of the first beaver groups ever in Quebec, in the Montreal area. So beavers is, in comparison to the scouting movement, beavers is pretty newer, and most people don't realize that's about 45 years old, give or take a little bit. The one of the biggest honors I had was I led the Grand Howland Cubs at a major camp, and that was for a sixer back then. That was quite a big deal. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, I did it twice, and I was just floored that I was asked to do it. One was an area camp, one was a regional camp, and I just think about what I learned and what I did, and it's not, to me, it's not about the number of badges you get or the number of stars you get. I've seen kids struggle and to get a badge, and to me that means more than a youth that goes out and he it's easy for him, if you know what I mean. Sometimes it's more of an achievement, right?
Yeah, for sure.
How has scouting changed? And I'm going to go here, and if you really don't want to, you can ask the changing of with females being allowed into men's groups. I know there's some of that going on. And then with the whole LGBT issues and all of that, how has that impacted scouting and how you run your programs?
Quite honestly, it hasn't really impacted programming. Scouts Canada has been open to females since either 98 or 99.
Yep.
So we've been we've been open to females joining our program since then. Mm-hmm. And we have like just as many females in our programs as we do guys. So it's not really a huge barrier for us, because it's something that, like, I've started scouting and there was girls in my beaver group, right? So it's just always been the norm for people like me. Yeah. So,
and it's funny you mention that. I ran, as many people listen will know, I ran a house league up in Markham for lacrosse for many, many years, for 15, and we had co-ed lacrosse. We didn't have, in our organization, we didn't have female and male programs. We had co-ed. The complexity becomes, if you have females, you have to have a female leader, usually. I mean, that's part of the complexity, I would think. And the other, it's things like at camp, sleeping conditions, things like who goes with the youth to the bathroom, things like that. Wouldn't you say that's more the issue, just the logistics behind the scene, than the actual program itself?
Yeah, so in a way, logistics had to change.
Yep.
But like if you go camping and you're using a cabin, most of the cabins have separate sleeping areas, separate washrooms. Yeah. So, and then we do have quite a lot of female scouters.
Yep.
So there would be, it's not really a huge concern or issue that we have female youth members
No.
be.
It's just something to be aware of, and there's always the parent or the family that says, why are they in? And the reality is they want the same experiences as the guys, and that's part of the issue. In terms of the program, how has the program changed besides the evolving and changing of the program? Is the outdoor side of the program changed, or is it updated for technology, or how has that impacted the scouting program?
I would say, like we all have adapted our programming to using more technology. We're doing a lot of stuff around STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yep.
Just the other week at my club meeting, we did Lego robots.
Yes, that's cool.
Which was a huge hit with all the kids. We're starting to, a lot of groups are starting to do geocaching.
Yep.
Which instead of like a modern compass, a map, they're more learning geocaching, but some groups still do teach like everyday compass and map skills.
Yeah.
So.
And correct me if I'm wrong, is there not still a computer badge in the CUP program, or is that out now? There used to be, right?
Yes, there used to be.
So I think the key is you just kind of adapt the program for the youth of today, but I still think more youth need to think about getting into an organization like Scouts Canada or other, because frankly they need to get away from the computers. They need to get away. Ironically, as we do a podcast, I say that, and they need to get away from all this technology, and they need to get out and think. And then you look at some things that have gone on for years in scouting, the camps. The other thing that comes to mind is cup cars are still existence in the cup program, and the big deal of making your own cup car, which is a skill that's gone on for years and years and years. And the big deal of cup car rallies and the malls and things like that. That's still a skill that's probably been in the program. I think cup cars has been in the program for over 50 years, I would think.
Yeah, Cub cars is a huge thing. Like my Cub group, we spend like 2 or 3 weeks working on them, and then 100 kids come out to race their Cub cars that they made out of a block of wood by cutting it, shaping it into a car, designing it, and then racing it down a wooden track.
You still get the kids to try and sneak a weight into the block of wood, or is that?
We have regulations and rules. So
yeah.
One of the rules is a maximum weight. So before you race your car, it gets weighed. So
yeah. We used to. It was funny in the days I did cup cars. We used to set ours on the scale. Even back 40 years ago, there were rules, and we'd be like, "How close can I get it to the maximum weight and not be over?" And I can remember as a kid growing up, we had competitions where you had guys, shaving inches off their car at the last minute to make weight, like, because every scale is slightly different. But I think that's kind of one of the highlights. And then of course the other big highlight is camps for people, and summer camps and winter camps. I think winter camps teach a whole new pile of skills that most kids, if they didn't go to winter camp, wouldn't learn, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure. You definitely learn a lot of skills at camps, and obviously, depending on what season you go camping, will depend on the skills that you learn. But there's a lot of great summer camp opportunities. Like Scouts Canada themselves won 4 summer camps opportunities in Ontario alone. Yep. And groups, if might choose to do their own summer programming and summer camps outside of our summer camp properties that we operate. So it's definitely a a draw for kids to do summer camps, and it's a lot of fun. So
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. I mean, as I say, I was just thinking, we're talking about skills at camps, and I can remember outside of Montreal, the Scouts used to own a camp called Camp Anderson. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a well-known camp in the Hudson area, and they do Cup Camp. And I can remember one year on day 2, so they do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday typically, and our kitchen staff decided to stage a mock strike. So they walked out of the kitchen all day. So that left the poor Cubs to fend for themselves with their leaders in the kitchen and make all the food for the weekend. And you look back at it, it was funny at the time, and the opportunity of learning how to cook. I mean, there's a skill that a lot of kids don't get anymore, and it's just things like that are so important, or first aid, or learning how to survive in the winter, or any of that stuff, right? It's pretty important. What's your favorite part about camp, Jake?
That's a really hard question, because I enjoy like the whole aspect of camps, like being away in like the woods, camping, hiking, canoeing, kayaking. It's all great.
It's funny though. You can always see the young first year Cub that's never been away for camp, because mom and dad pack everything, right? And it's like, yeah, and it's like, why? If you know what I mean, like you go on a hiking trip and poor John's got way too much weight in his backpack, or way too much in his camp stuff, and it's like, why? They're gonna wear the same stuff for 2 days, whether you like it or not, and they're gonna do the same thing for 2 days, right? And they're not gonna sleep for 2 days, and that's just the way it is, kind of thing, isn't it? So in the Scarborough area, is there stuff, not even in Scarborough, in Toronto and Canada, is there stuff you'd like to see in community groups happen more than less, that isn't happening right now?
One of the things that would be nice to see groups in like Toronto do more frequently is like collaborating and working with each other. A lot of the community associations are there for the same reason and want the same outcome. So let's like get together and work together. Or some community events, instead of doing 5 small events on the same street at different times, let's get together and hold 1 or 2 big events.
I would agree, and I think one of the things that can facilitate that is if our elected officials, especially at the council level, and I know in your area you've got a new councillor who's absolutely wonderful, which is good, if they would facilitate some of this and say, okay, let's start a clearinghouse kind of through the councilor's office of all the community groups, and let's get them talking, and use the councilor or their staff to get these groups talking together. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, like, in like where I am, like the couple of community groups that are together, like they do a lot of work together. Like the presidents of the associations get together once a month. So that's been something that's been in the works the last couple of years, and it's getting stronger, and I feel like it's getting our community stronger. So it would be great to see like more communities becoming
and then they need
siloed.
And then they do things like partner with city organizations. I'll give you an example that I have a good friend of mine that's involved in a group called Provis. They're one of the seniors community groups out there. So there's other ones like CARP and things like that. And then the community groups all don't talk to each other, which is problem number one. But the even bigger problem, they were looking at developing some technology stuff. And this friend of mine's very technologically aware. And I said to him, so why aren't you guys talking to the local library? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, the local library already has computer programs in place for seniors. So why are you guys doing all the heavy lifting, like you need to kind of work on a partnership and get you and the library working together, or you and the Y working together, or and do it as a win-win thing. And then you'd be better off because everybody benefits at that point, right? So
Yeah, for sure.
And we did that a lot in my days with Scarborough Carp. We actually had when I was vice chair, we had a working agreement with the YMCA up by the Scarborough Town Center, and we were able to use any of the rooms, and we did events in their facility, and as a result, their membership grew and our membership grew. So, there's an example of two groups working together and helping each other. And for us, it was, rental-free facilities, but for them, it was getting our members in to use their facilities, so they joined and things like that, and we did a lot of special stuff that way. So that kind of helps too, right? So, and I think your elected officials has to be, to some degree, part of some of this. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's starting to change in your area in the last couple of years is you've actually got a counselor who wants to be there and wants to help the community and wants to be involved and cares about what's going on and, around you. As you know, you got several other counselors, who want to be involved and care what's going on. And that makes a big difference too as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks for joining me, Jake.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate the chat. What are you working on professionally these days to get away from this chat?
I am in the process of starting my own business doing event planning and consulting.
Oh, cool. And if somebody wants to get a hold of you or wants to talk to you, because obviously I know from talks we've had, you've done many event planning for Scouts Canada. How can they email you or get in touch with you?
They can email me at jake@jakeforsyth.com or reach out on social media at jakeforsyth17.
Jake's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Find them. You want to see cool camp pictures, they're out there somewhere, right?
Yep.
And if you want some help with event planning, he's a really good go-to person. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Have a great day. Thank you, Jake, and talk to you all soon. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the SDM Interview Show. This podcast is a production of StunningDigitalMarketing.com, the agency that can help you with your web design, WordPress security, and digital marketing needs. Please subscribe to this podcast. This podcast can be found on Stitcher Radio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and more. Please don't miss the next edition. This podcast comes out every Thursday for your listening enjoyment. Until next time, please keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. And we'll talk to you all soon. Have a great week, everybody. Bye for now.